Welcome back to Science versus Conspiracy over coffee. I'm your host, Citizen Paranoid. We have an amazing show lined up for you today. I have a special guest in the studio. Well, virtual studio, that is. But we'll get to that in just a moment.
If you've been listening to us before, you know we love our coffee. We need our coffee. So before we get to today's interview, we're going to cut to a clip of a recent unboxing that we have on YouTube where we receive some of our coffee affiliates.
Now, the one that I'm really excited about, the Electric City, Scranton, Pennsylvania. It's the office.
Got to get your world's best boss mug out.
Scranton, what?
The Electric City.
Good packaging.
Nicely secured. All right, ready for this? I can't wait. I can't wait to even just see these. I'm so excited. Ready?
Yep. Ooh. Roast level midnight.
Roast level midnight. I love it. And it even has like some of the images to be like, you know, kind of the can't really smell it too much. But that's really cool. This one's for you, Cherokee Jack. Do you remember who that was?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, I love it.
All right,
I love it.
What was the other one that we got with it?
Boom, roasted. Check out our YouTube video about the unboxing of all these delicious coffees. Go to YouTube and type in @JenandBobLife. The link is also in the show notes. Now, let's get to the interview with Samuel Chong.
Grab some coffee, pull up a chair, and open your mind. Today on Science versus Conspiracy, we'll be chatting with Samuel Chong about the book Thiaoouba Prophecy over coffee. We'll be right back. We'd like to welcome Samuel Chong to the show today. Samuel is a certified court interpreter and Chinese translator in the Los Angeles area. He has worked on the translation of several books, including the one he's here to talk about today. Thiaoouba Prophecy, a fascinating book written by an extraordinary man. Welcome, Samuel, to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
So before we actually get into how you got in contact with Michelle, tell us a little bit about the book. Give us a quick and dirty overview of the book.
Yeah, I was searching for books written by ET contactees.
Mm-hmm.
So I found this book on Amazon, which talks about the author's personal experiences of being taken by this group of advanced ETs that have an advanced civilization to their planet for 9 days and then came back, in which he was informed of a lot of the mysteries of the paranormal, the history of Earth, where we all came from, the Bermuda Triangle, the Pyramid of Egypt, and also some of the stories in the Bible, and also the distortions of the stories in the Bible. So it's a very interesting book.
Right. So there's a lot of kind of religious aspect to what he was told by these extraterrestrials.
Well, definitely the stories as recorded in the ancient scriptures in the Bible, religions, they're actually against religions on Earth, saying that they're organized by people, but instead we should focus on the spirituality aspects of our lives.
Right. So I guess like the stories is like the story of Jesus and the flood myth or the flood story. That was all told to him about how that came to be, and that kind of aspect of like where the religious stories, the origins of the religious stories, I guess.
Well, there are several aspects of that. There were ancient civilizations that were wiped out, either by natural disasters or by other things, and in which this book explains how the stories or legends were documented in the Bible, and
Hmm.
also like a very interesting thing, like the Lemuria, Atlantis, and also where the Jewish people came from, where the Hebrews came from originally, and why they're a little bit different from us, and because they came from a planet that's on a different category.
We'll come back to that in in a minute. There's so much to unpack with this. So, how did he get in contact with these extraterrestrials in the first place?
Well, he didn't expect them to be coming to take him. He was sleeping in the middle of the night, and but suddenly he woke up. He didn't know why, but he wrote a note to his wife saying that he will be gone for 10 days or so not to worry about him. And then he walked outside of his house
Hmm.
to his yard, and then he was lifted up to the middle of the air, where he saw a beautiful 9 or 10 foot tall Nordic-looking ET that spoke to him, sometimes telepathically, and took him to a place where uh, we would call the parallel universe, before taking him on board to their spacecraft.
Interesting. From what I understand, the craft that he was brought on board was spherical in shape.
Yes, 100 meters in diameter or so, and there's no door, and just when they went inside the spacecraft, it's just like going through like energy field, or maybe like a force field.
Mm. Um, yeah, because when I read that part in in the book, it reminded me of I've been seeing more and more videos online lately of spherical shaped crafts being spotted and recorded across the globe. Um, so I was just thinking that maybe there's some connection to the spheres that are being recorded today and this book.
Yes, I mean, spherical spacecrafts are the more advanced spacecraft that we compared to some of the other spacecraft that crashed on Earth, such as what David Grush mentioned
Hmm.
or disclosed. I mean, there are ET crafts that crashed on Earth, but there are ET crafts that didn't crash or won't crash because of their advanced technologies. I think we should learn from the masters, the
Hmm.
ones whose spacecrafts didn't and won't crash.
Right. And the way I understand it too, there's some like 147 different ETs that are that form our galaxy, I guess.
I mean, that's the minimum number of ETs in our galaxy. That's what Michel Desmarquet personally saw on the planet Thiaoouba,
Hmm.
the different kinds of ETs whose corpses were floating in what they call the golden doko, or the golden structure. And that's actually just one of the three category 9 planets in which Michel Desmarquet visited. There are three category 9 planets in our Milky Way galaxy. So you can multiply 147 times 3 to reach, I mean, there are
Hmm.
hundreds of different ET races in our galaxy.
Right, but he was only witness to around 147 of them.
Yes,
Right.
that's right.
So on where they took him, the book talks about reincarnation and being um, exposed to different or seeing different versions of his life in past reincarnations. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, actually, he was taken into his past lives and witnessed that he was like a German mining worker. And also, he was a beggar in Africa, a goldsmith in Japan, and a few times just living a very common life, like an average person, like a fighter in Amazon forest, rainforest. And most of his previous past 80 lives were just keep learning different lessons. And he was told that the past lives were just like a wheel. What goes up has to come down. So it's a learning process that we each experience. The purpose of life is to engage in the learning process and to respond to the challenges that we'll face and to accumulate spiritual lessons. And then we elevate our mind and spirituality to move up to the ladder to the next level. So this is what Michel de Marquet was told, that there is reincarnation, and we do learn different spiritual lessons in each of our lifetimes. And indeed, the reincarnation has been proven by a lot of medical doctors and scientists, like Dr. Ian Stevenson, in which he documented people who remembered their past lives so detailed that he was able to verify the specific details as told by those people. And
wow.
also, if you search on the internet, you can look up the 9/11 victims or family members. In their children remembered that they were firefighters when 9/11 happened.
Hmm.
And so the
Wow,
evidence
that's
like
crazy.
that. Yes.
Yeah, so I guess that authenticity part of the story, because I'm sure a lot of people question question the book and saying that it's all science fiction, he's crazy, like those types of things. But it's been verified. There's it's a lot of what's in the book has been verified through science and other means.
Exactly. For example, after Michel de Marquet went inside of their spacecraft, he was disinfected using yellow light and blue light. That's very curious. Why use yellow light and blue light? It turns out that certain wavelengths of yellow light and blue light do have antibacterial, antiviral effects. This is proven by a paper published by the Harvard Medical School, and also other studies show that certain colors and wavelengths of the yellow light and blue light have such effects. And also the book specifically mentions that there is a tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan, that people can still visit. Remember, this book was written in 1987 and published in 1993. Back then, there was no internet, and Michel de Marquet was just a landscaper in Australia. He didn't know how to use computer. He didn't know how to type. And he knew that he never traveled to Japan, but he knew, he was informed of the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. And there's a tomb next to the tomb of Jesus. That's the tomb of his brother, that people can still visit and verify such information.
Yeah, wow. I found that fascinating too, because I had never heard that there was a tomb in Japan of Jesus before. I guess one of the other things that I from the notes was Jesus was actually one of the extraterrestrials, like a shapeshifter. So how did Jesus come to Earth, and is it part of a greater plan from the Thiaoubas or Thiaoubians?
Yeah, actually, it is a greater plan of the Thiaoubans. They wanted to help out by informing people that we should focus on love and spirituality, and there's life after death, and there's reincarnation. And in order to fulfill the prophecies in the Old Testament of the Bible, they put an implant on the uterus of Virgin Mary, and she was indeed a virgin. And little baby Jesus was born, and just to show people that someone extraordinary was born that way. And but because someone was born this way, and he would forget all the knowledge that he accumulated in his past lives, how to perform miracles. So that's why the young baby Jesus, who was born out of Virgin Mary, didn't know how to perform miracles. Even though he was really smart and highly spiritual, he had a great conversation with the teachers of the temple, but he couldn't perform miracles. this is probably why in the Bible there's no record of Jesus performing any miracles before the age of 30. He indeed went to India. So many people say that he went to India when he was young. Indeed, yes, but he traveled to China and died in Japan. So this is why there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan. But Christ is actually a different being sent by the Theophans to come into the body made by the Theophans that resembled the appearance of Jesus.
Okay, so there, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go ahead.
And that Christ figure was able to perform miracles and to resurrect the dead and to heal all the people with different diseases and materialize objects and walk on water. And the reason for them to bring Christ into our world was to show that he was a very special person, because people on earth back then and now were and are very skeptical. Unless someone who can or could perform miracles, his preachings wouldn't have been believed. So this is the whole purpose of sending a different Christ, a different being to us, so that his preachings or teachings could be believed by the people at that time. He died on the cross and resurrected 3 days after. That's true, just to show people that there's reincarnation and there's life after death. But somehow the concept of reincarnation was removed by the Catholic Church Council meetings. And the book named specifically the 4 different Catholic Church Council meetings that intentionally distorted the original meanings of the ancient scriptures in the Bible.
Right, and is that in the Book of Enoch?
Well, the Book of Enoch was a separate book that wasn't canonized into the Bible. And the Book of Enoch was actually very interesting, according to Michel de Marquet, was that the description of what Enoch went through was very similar to what Michel de Marquet personally experienced. As we all know, Enoch was taken away by gods, and Michel de Marquet believes that Enoch was taken away by the Theophans, the same group of ETs who took him to their planet.
Very, very, very interesting. When you put it, all these, like when you take the religious aspect and you kind of separate like the man-made religion part of it and where the spiritual, what I guess the original intention of these ETs were, is the spiritual aspect of it, and it was it's been changed over time and distorted and put into our different religions. But it's interesting to hear, excuse me, to hear and go back and see the kind of the original intention of the spirituality of these figures.
Indeed. And according to the ETs, when God created everything, it actually is a great spirit without any facial figures. It's actually just a pure spirit that created everything, like the stars, the planets, and animals and plants, and also human beings. And when it created like us, the human beings, it inserted a tiny portion of itself to each one of us. So that's why we are part of God, and God is part of us. So when we pray, we actually can connect to God or the Great Spirit through our higher self. So we can use meditation or other means to actually connect to the source through our higher self. So this is why when we encounter life challenges, we should look inside for answers and not to seek for assistance from religious leaders or the government or any other person. We should look inside for answers, because one of the most important sentences in the Bible would be, "The kingdom of God is within you." So we are actually able to follow our heart, our gut feelings, to find the best possible choices that we make in our lifetime.
Yeah, and we have the power of our own self to heal us and manifest those thoughts and everything. Very interesting. Um, so these ETs, um, are they friendly? They must be friendly, because they're trying to teach us a lesson here.
Yes, they're extremely compassionate and loving people, and they're able to perform all the miracles that's performed by Jesus Christ as documented in the Bible. They can actually levitate, they can materialize objects, they can communicate with Michel Desmarquet through telepathy. They can see the human energy fields or auras that some of us can see as well, and they can actually tell all the things that happens on Earth. They can take Michel Desmarquet to go back to history and to witness what happened to the continent of Lemuria 14,500 years ago. And they can actually do a lot of different things that we can imagine. And this is just like they're highly evolved and highly advanced beings in the universe that have guided us throughout history.
Right. Um, so yeah, I just want to jump back now to Lemuria. In the book, it talks about on his way when DTs were taking him to the Thiaoouba homeworld, they stopped off at another planet with an ancient race of humans, and are they the Lemurians, or am I getting them confused? Because I know the Bermuda Triangle kind of comes into play here as well. So I'm just want to kind of get that straight.
Well, first things first, when they visited that planet called Arimo X3, Michel Desmarquet saw the aftermath of nuclear war. But those people were the ancestors of the Lemurians because they had a very glorious history. They had advanced technologies, and they were able to migrate a lot of their people to Earth because of their overpopulation issue. So they actually used the far side of the moon as a transfer station. So they actually built artificial structures on the backside of the moon and migrating their people face by face to Lemuria, the continent of Lemuria that existed about from about 200,000 years ago, 250,000 years ago to about 14,500 years ago. So that's a huge continent on the Pacific Ocean. And they actually were the ancestors of the Lemurians, who are the ancestors of the Polynesians today.
Okay. That makes sense. That clears it up a little bit. So how are they were they transported to the far side of the moon, through these spacecrafts, or through like Stargate technology? That how are they being moved around the universe?
I mean, they had their own spacecraft that was different from the spacecraft of the Thiaoubans. The Thiaoubans were able to travel at a few times faster than the speed of light. But the Lemurians, I mean, the people from Arimo X3 had their own spacecraft that could travel to the far side of the moon as to migrate their own people. Remember, the Lemurians had advanced technologies such as anti-gravitational technologies and supersonic vibrational systems to cut certain huge stones into a very precise manner. So they had all these advanced technologies. I think they're able to travel pretty fast, at least faster than us.
Right. So then the ancient Egyptians, did they learn some of these techniques from the Lemurians, or did the Lemurians assist in the development and production of the pyramids and in that part of the world?
I would say that the ancient Egyptians learned the technologies of the Lemurians through the people on Atlantis, because the Great Pyramid of Egypt was actually built by a very wise and knowledgeable person named Thoth. And he was originally came from Atlantis, which was colony of Lemuria. So Thoth built the Great Pyramid of Egypt in a 9-year period of time using the same technologies that he learned from the Lemurians, the anti-gravitational technologies and supersonic vibratory systems. And he knew how to align the stones in a very precise manner, so that the Great Pyramid of Egypt was actually used as a tool to capture cosmic and terrestrial energies. So it's actually the energy center. And the ancient pharaohs actually used the pyramid to communicate with people on different planets, and also to explore parallel universe and to make rain. And I find that to be very interesting, because University of Reading of the UK actually did experiment, and they projected what they would call the orgone energy into the sky, so that they actually ionized the sky, and the clouds formed and the rain fell off. So that's the same. I would say the same technology that the ancient Egyptians used to make rain, because in the past, the archaeologists now verified that in the past, the Nile Delta region, the Nile River Delta region, was kind of having a very handful of rainfalls in the past. And there were a lot of evidence for that. So I think it matches the evidence that we learned from the archaeologists.
Right, because they've also with the Sphinx, because there's like water lines that they've discovered, and the time frame doesn't match up. So, tell me again what was the time frame that the Lemurians were here? Because, and does that set our human history? Is this like pre-flood? Or does it set our human history back thousands of years that's being hidden from us?
So the Lemurians came to Earth, or decided to come to Earth 250,000 years ago. And they actually started the migration afterwards. But they disappeared back 14,500 years ago because of an earthquake. The entire continent of Lemuria sunk into the ocean. But there were other people who came to Earth much earlier than the Lemurians. For example, the yellow people and the black people came to Earth about 1.35 million years ago. And they had established a very successful civilization in Australia and southern Myanmar. And they had a lot of technologies too. But then there was an asteroid that hit Earth soon after. And it actually split into 3 parts. One part hit was now the Red Sea area, and the second part hit was now the East Timor area, and the third part hit was now the Galapagos Islands area. So because of the asteroid that hit Earth, there was a great flood and destruction of the civilizations on Earth, and we had to, and everything was destroyed, and we had to start from all over again. And then afterwards, the Caucasians came. And they landed onto the continent of Atlantis, which was back then colonized by the Lemurians, and then the Jewish people came the latest, about 12,000 years ago.
Okay. So the asteroid that created the flood, that's where we get the Noah's flood myth and story of Gilgamesh and many of the other flood stories throughout the different cultures around the world. Let's take a bit of a break. We'll be right back with our guest, Samuel Chong. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Bermuda Triangle, and those types of, I guess, energy portals around the world. How do they play into it?
Well, when Michel de Marquet was taken by the ET, they first stopped in a parallel universe. And then the ET, whose name is Tao, explained to Michel de Marquet that on Earth, there are portals or warps in which are the entry points into a parallel universe. And in a parallel universe, time stops and people don't feel any pain or hunger or thirst. And people or objects near the entry points of the parallel universe get sucked into it. So this is why we see a lot of planes and ships gone vanish near the Bermuda Triangle area. And we also see that there are a lot of people just vanish in the national parks in the US and Canada, as documented by David Paulides in his Missing 411 series of books. So he has a very beautiful map, a very, very insightful map that documents where, or the clusters in which he found the people just vanish out of thin air. And those places are probably the frequent locations of the entry points of the parallel universe. And Michel de Marquet actually went inside and saw what it is like. And he saw people wearing medieval clothes and people who behaved like savages, people who have been stuck there for like thousands or tens of thousands of years.
And to them, it's probably just been minutes then. So these when they go through these portals, it is in this parallel universe. But can you travel to different planets? Is it just, are you stuck in the location that you are, where the portal is, just in kind of outside of our time?
I mean, the parallel universes, they are like ribbons that they float around. So they are actually in different locations on Earth. It's just a natural phenomenon. So when people got sucked into that, they normally don't know what happened. And unless they know how to get out, they're forever stuck there. And when they do come out, the locations may change and the time would change because, time stops in the parallel universe. And the ETs use the parallel universe as a hiding place to prevent people on Earth from seeing them. So this is why I guess you see a lot of UFOs or UAPs that come out of a specific location.
Yeah, because there's always lots of clusters of of UFO sightings in specific areas at different times, but they're all some areas have more sightings than others, so that would, I guess, make sense why they're hiding in these pocket parallel universes in states. So when Michel de Marquet went into these parallel universes, was he traveling in a craft? Is that how he was able to get in and back out? Or was he being guided by the Ethiopians? Excuse me?
He was guided.
Yes.
He was constantly guided by the Ethiopians. They lifted him up into midair and then led him into the parallel universe where their spacecraft was parked there.
Okay.
And so they used that opportunity to explain to him that this is just a natural phenomenon and people do disappear on Earth, and that explains a lot of the mysteries.
Interesting. Let's just go back to the reincarnation bit for a minute, because that's been on my mind since we started talking about it. We're set on this planet or other planets to learn and evolve, and then we move on. Do we get a choice, or is that something that's fairly random, that depending on what we've learned or didn't learn in any given lifetime, jumping to the next life. Yeah. So, do you know if that's planned or fully random?
Is a very good question. Is planned by ourselves. So before we reincarnate, we preview our lifetime. The important moments and key kind of events would be played or shown to us. And then we decide whether to take this lifetime or not. We can agree to be reincarnated into that family, or we can reject that opportunity. And then when we decide to go ahead, the preview is erased from our memories. Because according to them, like if we know that we are going to be crippled at the age of 40, losing all the family members like wife and beautiful children, and we would be likely to commit suicide or maybe to give up on the lifetime. So this is why the preview memory is erased from our memory. And then our astral body goes into the embryo in the womb of the mother. And then we become babies and we grow and we learn the different lessons in our lifetime, mostly spiritual lessons. And then when we die, our astral body leaves the physical body and then goes into our higher self after 3 days. And when that happens, we get to review how we did in the lifetime. We would be able to feel how everyone else felt when we engaged in certain actions. For example, if I hit someone, I would be able to feel how that person felt when I hit him or her. And everything will be known and shown to us in a holographic projection or experience. And we sometimes would be regretful that we didn't do certain things correctly. And when that happens, we decide what other lessons to learn in our next lifetime. So the cycle goes on. So it's a constant learning experience.
Yeah, and that sounds a lot like going back to religion and the Bible. When people pass away, they go up to heaven, and then they're judged of their actions during that lifetime. So I'm just seeing a lot of the parallels there of I guess the origins of some of these religious stories are tying in and coming from originated from the Ethiopians.
Indeed. So when we die, we evaluate how we did in the past life or in the previous life, and in a sense, because we are part of God and God is part of us, we can say that kind of like God or ourselves judge ourselves together. Like so, it's a very interesting idea that, but it's the same thing that a lot of people would try to encourage people to do, is to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. So after reading this book, I decided to really focus on the 4 Gospels of the New Testament of the Bible, just to learn what exactly Jesus Christ taught us. And that's important.
Right. And then you have a scholarship. Is that correct?
Yes, I have a scholarship to encourage people to read a book, and anyone who read a book and writes an essay will be eligible to be to apply. Yes.
Yeah. I'll leave a link in the show notes with your information and the link to the scholarship, so our listeners can check it out. What's the underlining message that the ETs are trying to tell us? To be good people, to believe in yourselves, that sort of thing, or is there something more deeper?
Well, there's something deeper. The book was written in the late 80s, and the key message of the book is that technology should assist in the development of our spirituality, not to enslave us in a materialistic world which is temporary anyway. So in a sense, it foreshadows the upcoming events of the technological revolution, such as AI, artificial intelligence, and ChatGPT, or things like that. And it's kind of asking us to focus on the most important part of our life, which is the spiritual development aspect. And also tells that the dangers of Earth are in the order of importance: money, number one, and number two, politicians, number three, journalists and drugs, number four, religions. So it asks us to open our eyes up and to see what's really going on around the world or happening around us, and to use our independent thinking and to respond to the situations that we all face and encounter in our lifetime, and to make the correct choices. And I would strongly encourage people to read the book and to get details, because it's a very profound book with a lot of information and facts that can really benefit the readers, specifically and practically. I actually, reading the book is the best investment I ever made in my entire life.
Right.
You know, I used to study economics and finance and play the stock market, but reading this book has been really rewarding because it can actually bring a lot of benefits to my life.
And you actually met Michel Desmarquette.
Well, you know, I was reading the book. I thought in the very beginning it was just another ET contactees book. But after I read the chapter, Who is Christ?, I was totally shocked and astonished at the explanations given in the book, explaining all the inconsistencies in the Bible. But in the postscript, it says there are more incredible things that the author, Michel Desmarquette, was not allowed to write in the book because we were far from understanding them. I was really curious about that, because the book is already incredible enough. What else was more incredible that he was not allowed to write in the book? So I decided to track him down. I didn't know where he was living at that time, and I didn't know whether he was alive or not. So I searched on the internet and found that some tourists actually accidentally met him in Vietnam,
Okay.
on Phu Quoc Island, Vietnam. Without giving me a specific address, they posted actually a photo of his bungalow, like a motel. So I printed that picture and showed it to the taxi driver after I landed in Vietnam. And the taxi driver saw the picture and said that he would give it a try, but there's no guarantee. And he took me there.
Wow. So you found him, and does this sort of thing happen all the time, that he gets tracked down, or is this something that was like a complete surprise to him? And I guess you were surprised when you did when it did turn out to be the right place.
I mean, he was really surprised at my visit, and he was actually very annoyed at my visit too, because he was a private person. He wanted to meet the tourist accidentally or by chance. He didn't want people just to locate him and track him down because of the book. So we had, when I tried to ask him all the questions, he became extremely annoyed and asked me to read the book one more time, kept saying that. And until that he realized that I was able to help him to contact the Chinese publisher, who paid him $2,000, but never got back to him regarding the publishing of the book in China. He asked me to see whether that publisher was going to get the book published or not. It turned out that the publisher decided to put it on hold because of the censorship in China. So Michel Desmarquette asked me to find a different publisher, which I did, and it became a bestseller in both China and Taiwan.
Wow, that's amazing. Really rewarding to know that his message is being accessible to many more people in different languages, not just in English.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So you've because he passed away in 2018.
Yes,
right,
in June.
So you kept in contact with him, and you developed this relationship with him, I guess.
Yes, before his passing, I developed like a very close working relationship with him and helping him to get a book published in both China and Taiwan. The second time, I mean, the reason for my visit to him the second time was that he decided to disclose the one thing that he didn't write in the book. He said that I had to visit him in person, and he had to tell me personally, face to face. And later on, I learned the reason because he didn't know how to type,
Okay.
and he communicated with me by email because of the assistance of his Vietnamese niece, who helped him to type out his dictation. So that's the reason. Yeah.
Can you share with us what the extra that's not in the book?
Yes, I can share some of the clues that I would be able to give. He told me not to reveal the detail or the information to anyone because Tao, the ET, told him so. But he didn't say that I couldn't write an article giving as many clues or hints as possible so that people can figure it out and yeah, what that is about. So I wrote an article, and the title of the article is "The Second Coming of Christ."
Okay.
And I put the article on my website, so I can give you the link.
Yeah, we'll leave a link in the show notes for that. So just a couple more questions here, and then we can wrap up. And they're all kind of grouped together, I guess, because with the recent revelation of David Grush, his story, how credible is his story in your opinion? Does it lend credence to this book and everything that Michel Desmarquet is talking about? What are your thoughts?
I mean, to me, his story is very credible. It's just my personal opinion because there are some consistencies to what Michel Desmarquet disclosed. The government actually has been working with the Greys, learning their technologies and reverse engineer their technologies, and their spacecraft crashed onto Earth, and that's for sure because their technologies were not or are not as advanced as the technologies of the Thiaoubans. And in fact, Michel Desmarquet received a message from the Thiaoubans in 1995 that the Greys originally came from a Category 1 planet, same level, same category as Earth. So they're not that far advanced compared to us. We are also a Category 1 planet, but the Thiaoubans live on Category 9 planet, the highest category in the universe. The Thiaoubans are like college professors, and the Greys and us are like elementary school students.
Right.
So this is why their spacecraft crashed.
They're not as advanced, yeah.
Yeah, not as fancy. But I think the US government, if they really want to learn the technologies and the important aspect of life, they should learn from the Thiaoubans, not from
not the right. Yeah, you got to learn from the best. You don't want to start off with some bad technology to begin with.
Right.
So that was going to be my next question. So we are reverse engineering some of this technology, but it's primarily the Greys' technology, not the Thiaobians.
Right, because the technologies or the spacecraft of Thiaoubans did not and will not crash on Earth. And actually, they revealed a little bit more information about the Greys as well. By the year 1995, the Greys did put implants on about 150 people or so just to monitor us because the Greys are a dying race. They have been losing their immune system for a long time. So they're monitoring us just to see how we respond to the same situation because we have been losing our immune system since 1948.
Oh, okay. So we're I guess it always made sense to me that when people would come forward and say that they have implants or they're being tracked by extraterrestrials, it always made sense to me because we do the same thing with animals, and we monitor them. We want to know their habits and what they're eating, to learn from them. So I just always thought that it made sense that if they're the aliens, however many different races there are out there, that they would do the same thing to us. They would be monitoring us from afar, trying to have as little contact with us as possible to keep themselves hidden, but be monitoring our actions and our food intake and our habits and our relationships and all those things that make us human, because they want to learn. But that's an interesting kind of side note on that, is that they're sick, and we are showing signs of a similar illness to them, so they want to see how we're handling it, I guess.
Yes, and the Thiaoubans also say there is absolutely no harm from the implants that's put by the Greys, because they have been monitoring the activities of the Greys just to ensure that there is no harm to us.
Are there aliens out there that do want to cause harm to us, that are the troublemakers of the galaxy, or is that more of a human kind of concept, and the alien races are more spiritual and loving and nurturing than us, and that's one of the things that we have to learn and evolve into. That's why we're at the bottom level, and they're at level 9. Like, are we the only ones that in the universe that are kind of have this aggression as a species?
Well, Michel de Marquet was informed by the Thiaoubans that we are not ready to explore outside of the solar system or even to the moon again, because we are not spiritually developed yet, because we have wars and also confrontations on Earth. Michel de Marquet gave an example. If you visit like a forest in Africa or China, some people say that if I use Africa, then it's a discrimination. So I use China because I'm Chinese.
Yeah.
So in China, you see like two groups of gorillas fighting against each other. Would you want to invite them to your beautiful mansion or beautiful house and to mess up everything that you have decorated? You
Right.
wouldn't, because they're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, we still have a lot of wars here and we are not ready. So the Thiaoubans would prevent us from exploring to the moon again, or to explore the solar system or outside of the solar system. Similarly, if the other ETs are not ready, if they are still having a lot of confrontations on their own planet, they would have been prevented from visiting us as well, because they are not ready either.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that can visit us or are allowed to visit us are the highly evolved spiritual beings.
Okay.
They wouldn't cause any harm to us.
Right. So this is kind of like the great filter that we've talked about on the show in the past, that there's a veil over Earth because we're not ready to explore the galaxy. So this is that's part of it.
Yes, exactly. And this is why we haven't been back to the moon for 50 years, even though the cost is lower and technology is far more advanced than 50 years ago.
So they're preventing us from creating the technology. Like, are they outright preventing us? Like, making our equipment malfunction, or have we just been told, no, you can't go back?
We have been told not to go back, and the astronauts who landed on the moon saw the ETs, and they were warned off from the moon. And actually, the ETs did guide us in the ancient history, and they are still guiding us now. They intervene sometimes when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they prevented Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. And I did some research and verified such information, because Germany at that time was far more advanced than the US in
Mm-hmm.
developing the atomic bomb, given by the fact that Dr. Heisenberg, who was very well known, and he actually wrote a report to Hitler, was given to Hitler, that he had this super weapon, but it would require Germany to have so much plutonium or raw materials in order to make the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't know that I don't know why, but he made a very big mistake, probably due to the intervention of the ETs, that says that he would need so much raw materials that Germany is impossible for Germany to have those kind of raw materials. So Hitler gave the plan up.
Right.
And so that's why the US government was able to make the bomb and deploy the 2 bombs in Japan.
Did the Germans have access to the gray technology?
Germany actually was developing the bomb and had a lot of technologies, and the ETs intervened by preventing Germany from successfully developing the atomic bomb, so that the US government was able to be ahead of Germany
Mm-hmm.
and end the war much earlier than otherwise.
Right, and I guess I'm referring to like the Nazi or the German Bell project, and the I guess the time travel UFO project that they were allegedly working on. So I didn't know if that was gray technology, or if that was just something part of the Nazis' advanced technology that they had developed on their own.
Yes, they did. They developed such technologies on their own. So the U.S. government was also doing the same, in the sense that if you know about the Philadelphia experiment,
Mm-hmm.
they were trying to cloak the ships from being detected by the radars. So they projected certain wavelengths of energy onto that area, and then a distortion of time and space occurred. And they later discovered that the time machine could be developed. But in this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, it says that the US government made a mistake in trying to develop a time machine. They should instead focus on the vibrational frequencies, not on the wavelength. And the Philadelphia experiment focused on the wavelength. And in this sense, this book is trying to help the US government in developing a time machine more successfully. I don't know about the status now, but when the book was published, the US government hadn't had a time machine yet. The ETs always side with the government that is more sincere in protecting individual liberty.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess back then, the US government was probably the leader in the world in ensuring that individual liberties were protected.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's definitely changed in recent times.
Yes.
Thanks you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure, and we'll leave. Actually, how can our people get a hold of you? Like our listeners get a hold of you?
People can search my name on Facebook or visit my website by searching the word Thiaoouba Prophecy and my name, Samuel Chong, Chong, and they can get a book from Amazon.
Perfect. And I'll leave links in the show notes with all this stuff, so everybody can go check it out. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
That's it for the show this week. If you like the podcast, leave us a comment or review and let us know what you thought of the Thiaoouba Prophecy. If you like the show but not the ads, head over to Apple Podcasts, and for $2 a month, you can get access to our premier membership, and that allows you to listen to the shows commercial-free. You also get bonus content and a whole lot more. We'll leave a link in the show notes. Next week, we will be welcoming Sue Sullivan to the show, where we'll be discussing DNA privacy over coffee. But before you go, remember, being paranoid is smart. We'll see you next time. This has been a Story Monkey production.